the big news in the last 24 hours is over the front of all of the newspapers, and it's Shane Ross and the performance yesterday at the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Sport, Tourism and Transport. The Irish Times had some interesting details about the PFAI asking FIFPro for some clarification about what the actual status of the league would be if the FAI were to be allowed to go wallop. And because that was picked up, I thought it might be interesting to hear from the PFAI this morning. I'm delighted to say Stephen McGuinness is on the line. Stephen, this is important that actually we get some clarity on this, and it's clear that you've been working away in the background to get as much clarity as you possibly can for your members. Can you maybe take us back to the point where you thought to ask FIFPro to get some clarification? Because obviously, you know, FIFPro is an organisation that I think people will know has a massive footprint and has some power and influence, and might actually be a very important player in this down the line.
Yeah, I suppose first of all, Gerald, we were actually scheduled to meet the Minister yesterday, myself and Siptu were, in relation to, obviously, with the women's international team, the ring fencing of money there, and just in general in regard to the 300 plus professional players that we represent in the league. So obviously when the comments were made yesterday, a number of our members, including the captain of Dundalk and our chairman, Gary Rogers, obviously made public their stance on it and how disappointed they were on the comments, without any clarity behind them. So I had obviously contacted FIFPro and Roy Vermeer, who's the solicitor there, to get some clarity from the UEFA on a situation where a federation went insolvent. Now, what was interesting was it actually never happened. The closest in Europe was Greece. And what the feedback we had from the UEFA would be that there wouldn't be an effect to our clubs in regard to prize money or European places, but that the league could continue without the federation in place once there's a new federation being set up. And as we know, the Premier League in England, for example, isn't connected to the FA. So the league could still run and complete. This prize money would still be able to be distributed. And obviously then you would need it. The federation, there needs to be a league for the federation to have an international team, but you need to have a federation, obviously, for UEFA to be able to distribute money. So in that period, yes, the league could still run. I think just the comments that were made yesterday, we were lucky enough there to obviously speak to Minister Griffin and to Shane Ross last night, and we did seek some clarity on it, and they put out a statement last night that in some way cleared up the situation again, because obviously we talk about grassroots football all the time, and it's really, really important. Everybody knows that. But there's people whose livelihood this game is. So it's not just the kids who play and the parents and the volunteers who are hugely important. At the very top end of our game, we have 300 people who get paid to play this game in this country. And it's vital that they're acknowledged as well, that it's not just about grassroots. The elite end of the game here suffers in a situation where the federation was to go bust.
Yeah, that's why I was so shocked at the willy-nilly nature of the fact that, the league would disappear too. There's no reason for the league to disappear if the federation was to go bust. The clubs could form a breakaway. The clubs could form a breakaway now. I mean, we all remember that the FAI was not in control of the league not that recently, or not that long ago,
Mid-2000s, yeah. Mid-2000s, the league was run independently. The Premier League is run independently of the FAI. So the suggestion that we can't have a league here without the federation is unfounded. Obviously, you need a federation for UEFA to be able to distribute money through and all that, and we get all that side of things. But there was just the way it was said yesterday. I think the ministers were putting scenarios that maybe they weren't fully briefed on. And I had an opportunity last night to speak to both of them and clear up about the captain at Dundalk, Ryan Gartland, and our chairman, Gary Rogers, to ensure that our members were fully aware that, look, this league can continue to run. But it shows you, I think it needs cool heads at the moment. There's lots of statements going out. It's back and forward. It needs people to have cool heads to look at this situation. There's obviously meetings upcoming between UEFA and government, but it really does need cool heads here for people to look at this and to ensure that Irish football is put on the best foothold possible. Because there's too many people, as I said, whose livelihoods rely on this. Like, there's full-time people at football clubs, there's physios, there's doctors, there's coaches, there's players. This game isn't just, it continues to hear grassroots all the time. And it is vital. We have an elite game here where people's livelihood, and it is their jobs. It's not just something that they do for fun. This is their actual job. And it's important that people at the very top, from the minister, from the government's point of view, that they're aware of that. And we were glad last night that we got that clarity.
Okay, so talk to us about what you would actually like to see. Cool heads, 100% agree, and actually that's why it's important that you do have access to the FIFPro, who can actually legitimately just call somebody in UEFA and get clarity straight away. Like, I'm not sure at the moment that the government appear to have that communication line where they can go, well, what would the situation be? What would the scenario be? And they should know those scenarios. They should have done that work. And I don't know if it was the department or if it's actually the ministers themselves who should be asking these questions of the department to find those answers out for them. Because, as you say, this is a very public forum yesterday where they go out and they make these statements. And I'm sure if you were working in football, and we were making the case, if you're thinking of investing in the League of Ireland, if you're a sponsor at a local level who might be interested in getting involved, and you hear that yesterday, you're like, well, I'm not going to just put any money in right now because I don't know if this league is going to exist in 3 months or 6 months. And that's why it's very important that the message goes out that the league will continue to exist irrespective of what's going on.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And look, I was lucky enough to be in a position yesterday to be able to speak directly to the two ministers, have their aides, Ken Spratt, who put the network and stuff around it, which means now that Sport Ireland have now pulled ourselves and the clubs in to discuss a doomsday scenario to make sure that all the information is there. We expect to hear about that in the next couple of days. So where all the stakeholders sit around the table and say, look, here is the scenarios, here's the doomsday scenarios. Now, we can argue now whether that should have been done prior to yesterday and if this was a reality. But obviously in the meeting that the Minister had with the FAI the other night, obviously examinership was something that Grant Thornton brought up, and possibly insolvency. I don't know whether that was discussed or not. But them scenarios need to be teased out, and there is a meeting with Sport Ireland who obviously will contact UEFA Direct to ensure that they have the best information, and we'll have far more clarity on it. But just on the initial one, as we've just said, there's no way this league should be allowed to fold, will be allowed to fold, and the clubs are run separate businesses. And I've said this a couple of times, with all due respect to the FAI, it's not as if they put a huge amount into the league. If we're being bluntly honest here, they don't put a huge amount into the league. The league, when it broke away, was the right decision to make because it needed to be run independently of the clubs for a period of time. But we're probably at a stage now where the clubs really do need to look at them. There's obviously the Kira Lewis model, and there's other models out there where the league is run separately from the FAI, and I do think that is going to happen ultimately. But it's important, as I said already, people have cool heads, sit down logically and look at the scenarios that we're in. But the bigger picture stuff needs to be addressed as well. We do need a functioning federation to ensure that the game continues to go.
Are you suggesting that as soon as that new federation is solved and the current situation is, I guess, bypassed or whatever may happen, that the League of Ireland then breaks away as its own organisation, no longer under the FAI or whatever guise the FAI might end up being? Yeah,
I think long term I've been at enough meetings and discussions now, and I do think that is the way it's going to go. There's obviously elements to the federation that you would need in regard to club licensing and in regard to the disciplinary side of things. I think there's still uses for it, but in regards to running it, I do think personally that it needs to push away from the FAI now.
Stephen, could I just ask as well, I know it's kind of moving it away from what happened yesterday specifically, but even over the course of the years that have been since the League of Ireland has come back under the FAI umbrella, was there a sense even from your perspective that perhaps the league was being held back by the FAI?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, 100%. I think initially when we moved, which was 2005, I think when we moved first, and I've no problem saying this, John Delaney initially was within the first year done more in the first 2 weeks he was in charge than had been done previously in the previous 5 years. We were looking for standard players contract to be implemented, and he implemented that overnight. And there was a new dawn coming in, and lots of us, and I just took over as running the PFA. I said, we are going to a new dawn here, new standard players contract. We're going to see a whole new branding of the league. We're going to see investment from the federation. We're going to see new grounds. Unfortunately, we didn't see any of that. We saw an initial, we're going to do this, and then gone. And ultimately what happened was we don't know the value of our league. Everything was rolled into the international team, and the prize money, quite frankly, is embarrassing for what it is for our clubs to win the league. And the prize money right down to the bottom, it nearly costs you money to enter the league. The reason we should have a queue of teams looking to play in our league. You look across leagues in America and Australia, queues of teams trying to get into the MLS, trying to get into Australia, trying to get into any leagues all over the world. In ours, we have nobody queuing up to come in. If we have a scenario now in the first division, we're looking for Shamrock Rovers B to make up 10 teams. It's not attractive to come into our league. And we need to make it attractive. We need to make it that if you come into our league, you can actually make money. It's a proper business structure. We assist kids, you can develop. We've none of that. And it costs huge amount of money to run a League of Ireland club. You see Limerick just go to the wall recently. And one of the litany of clubs in the last 10 to 15 years that's happened. So it hasn't been good. Initially we thought it would have been. hasn't worked out that way, unfortunately. And I do think the clubs need to take ownership of the league themselves, and there's been enough discussions around it. Whether the hybrid model and use pieces of the FAI, as we said already, whether it's the disciplinary, the club licensing piece of it, whatever, but it has to be run separately. And what has happened is a lot of the money that was coming into the league went into this black hole within the FAI, and nobody seems to know what the value of the league was, what the sponsorship deals, no TV monies, with a really bright future of our game, if we can get this piece of it right now. I think you see the young players that are coming through. I think the coaching, everything is miles ahead of where it was at, and we're starting to see the route to that coming through. And unfortunately, it's bad timing that the federation has found itself in such depth.
Do you feel like now, and after the meeting last night, that the players will be a stakeholder whose voice is heard in this phase of what's happening? Because it's difficult to make sure that all the stakeholders actually do get their say. We had that the event in the Mansion House a while back now, and I don't know if anything actually came from it, or if that was just another Shane Ross vehicle. Ultimately, we've just lost Stephen McGuinness there. We'll get back to him. See if we can get an answer to that question. But I think it's clear that some people have actually got access to find out information. The PFAI are an organisation who do have access to find out information. And so suddenly you get a correction from this scenario yesterday where the minister in a showpiece is actually putting out something which is demonstrably false. Now, maybe it's through not doing enough work. Maybe it's through not finding out the right, not asking the right questions. Who knows why Shane Ross didn't know that yesterday? Stephen, sorry, I'm just going to ask that question again. Do you feel now like you representing the players, and the players will have a voice as stakeholders in this situation into the future?
Yeah, I think a couple of things have changed, Ger, since March. A couple of key things have changed. The governance review took place. Whether it went far enough or not is another argument, but the players through the PFA have found ourselves now on council. So for the very first time, we find ourselves in a situation where we do have a voice at the table, albeit two positions in a 79-person council. We have representation on the international committee and a representation on the underage committee. So we now find ourselves in a situation where we actually have a voice at the table now for the first time. Like, it was incredible that, and with all due respect to the defence forces who do great work and whatever, colleges and universities, they have been in council for the last 20, 30, 40 years. The players have been excluded from it. And people had possibly agendas, I don't know, but for not have player representation at any level in the FAI, I would have questioned from the first day I got involved in football in Ireland. Thankfully, we're at that table now, so we have a voice. It's only at the start of it. I think there's huge problems at council level. I think when you look at the culture of the organisation and you really want to make change, we're picking from the same pool, Jared, every time. We're picking from the same pool of people to go on the board, to go on the committees, and that really does need to be looked at, because people who have been there for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they've been part of a culture which was driven by a CEO at the very top that nobody questions. And are these people still the ones fit to drive our game forward? That's the big question that we have to ask, and that's where people have to look at themselves and the organisation they're involved in, and are we fit to run the game as it stands right now? Is the council and the people involved in British football the right ones to continue to drive the game forward?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and it's obviously one that we're going to keep a close eye on. But just to wrap this up, the final message from you is that what we heard yesterday in the Dáil committee isn't factually correct. What we heard last night from the statement, the joint statement from the Minister and the Deputy Minister, that's closer to the truth. But you were much stronger. You said that this league is not going to disappear, and nor should it be allowed to go, and it won't be allowed to go. Yeah,
I think that's clear. I think it's unprecedented waters, Jared, that no federation has ever become insolvent. So it is uncharted waters. But from the information that we have from FIFA through UEFA, is that they can't see a reason for it. Now, there's obviously going to be meetings with ourselves, the clubs and Sport Ireland to tease out the exact situation. If the situation came along, we're all very hopeful. Nobody wants that from the Minister, I'm sure, from the Taoiseach. Nobody wants to see professional football and our game, more important, to go insolvent. So it's in everybody's interest to ensure that doesn't happen. You would hope that the people at the very top of government in our own country, the top of the FAI, the people who are on the board now, do everything in their power to work together. And it needs cool heads. The statements coming back and forward, people need to keep cool heads and ensure that our game is protected above everything. And personal interests or whatever's going on at the very top end of it needs to keep the heads cool and ensure they make the right decisions for Irish football.
All right, Stephen McGuinness, thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Tom.